The 12th at 23:18, they knocked on my door. And then I opened the door and my ops sergeant major, he's like, "Sir, we have to be in Afghanistan in 24 hours. My statement to the commanding general was, "Hey, sir, like you will never wait on us." We were already postured to go, and this was our mission.
I landed around 3:30 a.m. local time in Kabul on the 18th. I remember just looking around and being in awe because you're in a giant valley and it's mountains. And those mountains are probably 10,000 feet. So you just look and you just stop.
For me over there, it was, fortunately, I think 95% of the time we were very bored, which is what I wanted. And I kept having to tell my medics, I don't want you to be busy. I want you to have the most boring time here possible because I don't want anyone to get hurt on our team. But there's always this pit in your stomach sense of dread of when is it gonna happen? Like, when is the ball gonna drop? When are all these threats of rocket attacks or ISIS-K, when are those gonna manifest and where? So for me, it was never really fully resting easy. For me, it was how can we get our people to safety and how can we treat them effectively and get them to where they need to go if, and God forbid, when it would happen. It was like a Wild West ghost town because people left in a rush. Like, you'd walk into an office building in the State Department area and there'd be food with a fork still and a partially drank cup of coffee and some notebooks with some writing in it. Just like, they just left.
We looked at our own numbers, at our own embassy footprint. We drew down and went on to what the State Department refers to as ordered departure status, which drastically limits the inflow of people and gives the Chief of Mission the authority to direct the departure, the withdrawal from the country.
Our job was a response force, and we were ready to go. We were the last ground combat unit in, and then we were given our section of the airport to secure. And then a few days later, between North Gate and Abbey Gate, that's when they started processing. We were the last piece to start the actual evacuation out of Afghanistan.
We went there with minimal things. Like, we had anticipated getting more medical supplies flown to us, but they were saying, you know, whatever you bring, you might not be able to bring back depending on how many planes are flying out at the end of this. We don't know when the end of it will be or what will happen. We packed very light and we improvised, and we had no vehicles, but we ended up with a fleet of vehicles by the end of it because we acquired some, as the military calls it. We got a truck from somewhere. Our guys found it, and they somehow ratchet strapped a litter to the bed of the truck for an emergency evac vehicle, but it was a stick vehicle and I had never driven one, so I was like, well, better learn now. So I learned how to drive a stick at the airport in Kabul to evacuate casualties, which not a lot of people can say that. We found a street sweeper, an abandoned street sweeper, and one of our personnel admin folks knew how to drive it, so he actually cleared the runways of all the trash left behind by like thousands of refugees going through, think water bottles and food and like whatever. So he was keeping the runways cleaned for the airplanes to be safe.
I mean, really, it was a humanitarian mission. And I think that was something I really latched onto from the beginning was we're here to help. And anything I can do to bend over backwards to do it, I'm going to.
They were all playing with the kids and hanging out with the kids, which they loved doing. And the kids came up to me and were like, "You're a doctor?" And I'm like, "Yep." Because I'm not going to explain what a PA is to an Afghani child. It's potato in their line. And I was like, "Yep." He's like, "I want to be a doctor." I'm like, "Well, in America, you can do whatever you want to do. You'll be going there if you're in this compound." They were all very excited to be going to America. Started like a boring day. I do remember my dad, because we had our phones, and obviously OPSEC, we didn't tell him what was going on, but at that point it was on social media, like it had been told that we were there. But he texted me an article saying, "Did you see this?" And it was attack at airport imminent that morning, and I screenshot it because I was like, "Oh, you don't need to worry about that. It's just, don't worry about that." I just kind of minimized it. And one of the next texts he sent, I was in a field ambulance on my way to Abbey Gate to respond to the attack. And I felt my phone go off as I was stuffing my pockets with like tourniquets because I didn't know what I was walking into. And I like quick pulled out my phone, and it was my dad again, but he had sent an article that says attack at Abbey Gate, 1 dead, many wounded. And he's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, I don't know if I'm okay yet. I was with a physician from the 82nd, and I remember telling him, "I'll be honest with you, I've done a lot of trauma in my civilian job, but I've never dealt with military trauma." He's like, "It's no different, just remember your training." But it was still just absolute chaos at Abbey Gate. Quite a few civilians, mostly children, were injured. I took care of a little girl with, I think, just gunshot wounds, but she was shot several times on her legs and hip. And just, I was told, go to triage. That's where I met that little girl. And then they brought her into the main treatment area, and another team took over. And then I went and helped our doc at the time, Colonel Borden. He was with us in Afghanistan, and he was taking care of a Marine with big shrapnel wounds on his arm. And it was, fortunately, he had gotten pain medicine, so he knew, like, he was comfortable and almost cracking jokes because pain medicine makes you do that. But I couldn't help but just like have that, again, that gut feeling of like, he doesn't know what's happened to his friends yet. This is gonna hurt when he wakes up from this. I went back after that to our meadow. Lieutenant Fleming came and grabbed, he's like, "I need you or Colonel Borden to come back because we have to reset and be postured in case our team takes a hit." So, because we had our only two providers had gone to the Roll 2 to help with this mass cal, and so I went back to our hangar, and I just walked in, and that's when all of the feelings that you compartmentalize kind of hit, and then I was just kind of sitting there shell-shocked. And then I was like looking at my hands, and I realized I had a bunch of blood from the little girl on my arm and uniform shirt, so I went and cleaned up and changed, and then we went into one of our unit briefs, and it's back to steady operations.
As the days kind of slowly rolled by, you saw more erratic behavior, really desperation, start to come out from these folks that wanted to leave. I mean, eventually at one point, we had people climbing up a tower that was just outside the perimeter, jumping over the fence from 30 feet up onto a blacktop road and breaking their legs, just to try and get out. So just the level that people were willing to go to. I mean, even the last couple nights we were there, I mean, we had people actually scaling the wall, dragging themselves through concertina wire, getting all cut up, and then flopping out on the other side and begging for help.
People were climbing over these like 20 plus feet Jersey barriers, sneaking through to jump down, and we had ladders set up on the sides of them for them to climb back over, because what do you do? Like, we don't have papers for you. There's like no screening process. And so people had the option of climb back over yourself, or we'll bring you to the gate and turn you over to the Taliban. It's not my story to tell, but I know one of our platoons had to do that with somebody, and it hit them very hard because the guy didn't understand the option of climb over or go to the Taliban. And so they ended up turning, bringing him to the gate. And And the guy just collapsed in tears, realizing what was going on, and who knows if he's alive. But it hit our mortar platoon very hard to have to do that. The last night we were there, we ended up going to an area of the airport in the far east corner to pull security along that because the Marines had already left. I think there was 3 infantry battalions with the 82nd left plus us that were pulling security for the whole airport. So most people had already gone. So we were spread thin, and we just pulled security overnight there and then got on a plane. I wanted to leave. It was a black hole. There's only so much you can do in that situation. And we didn't know how many people we left behind, the American citizens and the Afghanis that were deserving to get out because they helped us so much. We didn't know the bigger picture until after we got out. I don't know what the right answer would have been. I don't think staying longer. I mean, it's a black hole. There's always one more person you can save, and but I didn't want any more of our people to get hurt. I just wanted us to be out of there.
Everybody who was there in that period, and probably everybody who served in Afghanistan over the course of 20 years, everyone looks back at what got done, what they were able to do, and what was undone. We have to live with that. There's no place I would have rather been.